Welcome to the Black Belt Business Podcast. My name is Matthew Brenner, and today I am with Donovan Ryder. He's a multi-martial arts school owner and runs really successful after-school programs out of his school. So, Donovan, thank you so much for being on here today.
I appreciate it.
Donovan, tell us a little bit about martial arts background. So, before I got on here, we hadn't met previously or talked previously, but I power watched your YouTube videos as quickly as I could before our interview so I can get to know you a little bit. And I heard something maybe about Olympic competition or something like that. Tell me more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started Taekwondo when I was 7 years old in small town Orangeburg, South Carolina. The only martial art program in our town just happened to be Taekwondo. So that's what I got started with. Started in a rec center, fell in love with it, started going to tournaments early as a kid, and fortunately had some success, which fueled me into wanting to do it even more. So I was the kid going to the school Monday through Saturday every single day, was watching the 1996 Olympics. And my parents were glued to the television, and I was like, "What's going on? Why do my parents love this?" And they were just basically explaining to me that Olympians are the best athletes on the planet from every country competing for their countries, and I wanted to be there. I wanted to be a part of that. So I started training, competing full time. I'd say full time as a kid, right? So at this point, I was probably like 10 or 11, 12 years old, and I just started training more often, trying to learn how do Olympians train? What do they eat like? What are their morning sessions like? So even as a fourth grader, fifth grader, I was waking up at 6 a.m., going on jogs, going on runs to compete. And then fortunately went to the AAU Nationals when I was 12 years old. My first time, I won first place in sparring, and that fueled me even more to keep going. So competed throughout high school, and then had an offer to move to the Olympic Training Center and train with the world-class athlete program in the Army. So I actually left high school my senior year. I never finished my senior year, but I had enough credits to graduate. So I skipped my senior year, still got the diploma, went to basic training, went to my job training for the military, and then went straight to the world-class athlete program in Colorado Springs. And I was stationed out there from 2004 to about 2011.
So what were you competing in? Was it point sparring? What was it?
Yeah, great question. Olympic Taekwondo. So
Olympic
three
Taekwondo.
rounds, 2 minutes per round, as many fights as it takes for first place.
So did you make the games or were you what happened?
Yeah, great question. So competed throughout that time, had the highs, had the lows, won nationals a couple times, won athlete of the year. We have the military world championships. I went to that 5 times. And then going into the Olympic trials for 2012 in London, at Olympic trials, actually my third fight, I tore my ACL, MCL, and meniscus in my third fight. So basically my day was over for Olympic team trials that day. And at that point, I'd been gone for 9 or 10 years from Orangeburg, South Carolina. Because again, remember, I left high school. I left my friends, left my family, moved to a place I'd never been before, just to compete and train full time. And at that point, my military contract was up, so it was either, hey, commit for 4 more years, or you can get out at this point. And so I basically rehabbed my knee, decided to move home to Charleston, South Carolina.
So when you were in the military, did they pay for your training? Is that how that works?
Yeah, absolutely. So my complete job was to train. So a typical day for me was an 8 a.m. practice. So I got there around 7:30 to get my ankles taped. We were treated like professional athletes. So we had a medical staff, I had a nutritionist, I had a personal trainer.
So you weren't going into combat as a military. You're the Taekwondo fighter that represents the military, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's considered like a sweetheart deal. So a lot of people don't know in the military, and especially in the U.S. Army, the other forces have it, but it's not as prevalent. In the U.S. Army, you can be what's called the world-class athlete program. They call it WCAP for short. And you basically train and compete. So a lot of the Olympic boxers you see, Olympic wrestlers, Olympic swimmers, a lot of those are soldiers that are in the U.S. military because, as we know, martial artists especially, but a lot of athletes don't make money. You look at even someone like Michael Phelps. He made money through sponsorships, but he did not make money as a swimmer. He's not winning tournaments and making tens of thousands of dollars, which is not how it works. So a lot of people that don't have the sponsorship opportunities will actually join the military to compete as an athlete. And as long as you're winning, you will stay in that program indefinitely. I know guys that have been in that program for 20 plus years and then became coaches just because they, were competing at a high level. But if you get selected to be in that program and they have benchmarks every year for you that you need to be hitting. And if you don't hit them, my time was during Iraq and Afghanistan. So if you did not make the benchmarks, you would be in Iraq or Afghanistan 2 weeks later.
That is kind of hilarious. Like, hey, if you don't do well, we're going to ship you to the Middle East into a combat zone.
Yeah, two times in my career when I was at WCAP, it was basically, hey, be
Sorry,
in the
what's
finals.
WCAP? Say what's WCAP?
WCAP's a world class athlete program.
Okay.
Yeah, so two times I had two separate tournaments throughout that time that I was not hitting my benchmarks at that moment, and they were like, "You got to get first or second place. Like you're getting on the podium this weekend, or you'll be overseas in 2 weeks."
So is that what you tell your employees now, like your instructors? Like, hey guys, if we don't get, we don't hit a gross of 60K this month, I'm shipping you overseas, shipping you to North Korea or
That would be
something.
nice to be able to do that, but no, unfortunately, we can't do that here. Right? We got to play the people game.
So, oh, you obviously, as a martial arts athlete, it was very important to you for most of your life to become an Olympian. But when did you decide, okay, I'm going to make this like a career teaching other people?
Yeah, it's a great question. So again, after tearing my ACL, MCL, meniscus, I had my last year competing was my best year. I won nationals. I won athlete of the year for USA Taekwondo. I made the collegiate national team. And so it was a great year for me. And it was interesting because the night before Olympic trials, I had dinner with my mom. She was the first time she'd seen me compete since I was in high school. And she flew out to watch me compete. And she's like, "How are you feeling about this?" And I was like, "I feel amazing. I feel great. Best year I've ever had competing." But I was like, honestly, I'm missing home. Like, I feel like I've missed a huge chunk of my life. About half my life almost at that point was in a whole other state. And the Army had actually come to me and said, "Hey, we'd like for you to re up for 4 more years to keep competing." And I said, "Well, let me compete this weekend at Olympic team trials. And afterwards, I'll make a decision." And my mom just said, "Hey, compete tomorrow. Something will happen. And you'll know, like, I'm either all in or I'm out." And the next day, I completely destroyed one of my knees. And at that point, it was just a catalyst for me to say, "You know what, I'm ready to go home. I miss my family." But I felt weird leaving at that point because I trained all these years to get to that point. But it was honestly really clear at that point that I was ready to move on. I moved home to Charleston, South Carolina. But because I had been training so long for this one moment in time, and then to have it felt like taken from me just, from a freak injury, I needed some time. So I just spent long days at the beach hanging out. I didn't work for the first 10 months. Luckily I'm a saver,
How
so I
old were
saved
you?
the money. How old?
Yeah, how old were you by this point?
26 years old.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, 26. So I didn't work for about 10 months. Lived really tight, just kind of on savings. And then after a couple months, I was like, all right, I gotta figure something out. I need to do something, or I'm gonna start digging holes here. So decided that the only thing I know how to do is martial arts. It's the only thing I know how to do. And fortunately, I grew up in a great program and saw firsthand how to run a successful program. So I decided, hey, I'm going to do this here in Charleston. But like most people at that point, I didn't have a lot of money because I'd been living on my savings. So I had about $10,000 left in savings is all I had. And that's what I opened my first school with. So obviously that's not enough to open a school with. So I started out actually in a rec center and just teaching outdoor classes in a park.
Very cool. Yeah, I've taught a lot of outdoor park classes myself. I think most
Yeah.
martial artists, it's almost like a rite of passage. Just like you have to teach with like little to no resources, be underappreciated, make no money for a little while before you ever, I guess, make it big, whatever that means.
100%.
So when you open up your first school, did you have financial support? Like, how did you have the money to open up?
No, not at all. So it was literally, and honestly, looking back, you might feel the same way. It's like looking back, I'm like, what was I thinking? Fortunately, it worked out. But again, I taught in a rec center for about 6 or 7 months. I'd done an after school program, but like where I went to the school to teach kids, and then I was teaching in a park. So at that point, I'd had about, I don't know, 15 to 20 kids or so. And I thought, man, I'll get everyone to come to my school. So I got $10,000 left. I found 1,000 square foot location that was really cheap. And it was literally puzzle mats on the floor, me in my Army uniform, like still didn't even have a uniform I didn't have a name yet. It was Donovan Ryder teaching Taekwondo to kids. So no logos, no names, no business plan. It was pure puzzle mats and a set of paddles and a shield that I took from the world class athlete program when I left. So the way I looked at it was I set up benchmarks for myself and said, hey, if I sign 2 more students this week, I'll buy a Wave Master. And if I buy 2 more students next week, I'll buy another set of paddles.
Mm.
So I just slow played it. I mean, the first year we did $30,000 in the entire first year. That's all revenue for the whole first year. So it was just really tight living, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I was pretty much the same as you actually, where I think in like personal income, the first year was like $3,800, something so silly. And I was living in my mom's basement at the time, like actually living in the basement. So it didn't really matter to me. I mean, it sucked, but I didn't have any expenses or kids or anyone that
Yeah.
depended on me. So it really didn't matter. And I feel lucky that I had that opportunity in the beginning with like a safety net that if I failed, it really, didn't really matter. Right.
Yeah.
Uh, but for you, eventually you open, the school opened, eventually you grew. So what year do you feel like, okay, this is the year that actually we made it big or you were successful?
Yeah, so we opened in October of 2012. And again, I didn't know. It was interesting because like we opened October, in the January we had a decent bump of kids come in. I'm thinking like, okay, well, people are finding out about us and we're growing, not knowing that you just get a spike of people in January because it's the new year. And then summertime comes, and I'm like, damn it, like all my kids are quitting for travel. We live at the beach, so everyone, our summers are slow for us, and we make up for that for summer camp. But traditional martial arts, our numbers go down just like most of our industry. And then again in August, I'm like, man, we're growing. I signed 30 members this month. Like I'm doing something right. So I didn't even know. I mean, didn't have a coach. I didn't know the ups, the downs, when the spikes were coming. It just was. I mean, it literally started from nothing. I was going out, passing out flyers, like car bombing, just putting flyers everywhere. So we were probably about 2 years in when I decided I'm going to convince someone to come work with me and help me do this. Because we got to the point where I had honestly only about 55, 60 members or so. But it was just hard for me to teach the classes and then handle walk-in. So I convinced a buddy of mine that did Taekwondo with me when I was in high school to move here. It's about 4 hours away, to move here with his family and work for me. And then once I had a team, once I had more people around me, that's when we really started growing.
How did you how did you pay this guy? How did you afford to pay
That's
him?
a
He's
great
got a
question.
family and he's moving,
Yeah.
right? So it's a lot
So
of
he had
pressure.
been married about a month or two, and I was making about $1,000 a month net at that point. So again, not a lot of money. And I basically told him, if you come here, I will pay you the $1,000 that I'm making. I will go back to zero. And I think that was a big trust factor for him to know that I'm willing to give that back up. Like that's how much I believe in what we're going to do. And so I gave him the $1,000, and he's like, well, I'm married. Like, what am I going to do with my wife? And I
Yeah.
was like, well, I have a guest bedroom. Like I have an apartment. I have an extra bedroom. You can just stay with me for free. And he's like, well, what am I going to do with my wife? And I was like,
Wait, did he
how about
have
this?
kids or
Come
he
down
didn't
for,
have kids?
he did not have kids at this
Just a
point.
wife. Okay.
Yeah, just the wife. And so I said, hey, move in with me for 3 months. And if it's working out, then she can come down. You can figure out your living situation. And if it's not working out, then you can just go back to, 4 hours away, and you gave it a shot, and you'll get paid a little bit of money along the way. And so that's basically how I paid him. And that's even our third employee we brought on. It the next stage, about a year later, I was making $35,000 a year, and then I convinced another person to come down and said, look, here's what I'm making, here's what I can pay you, I'll take myself back to zero. But every time we brought someone on, I mean, we just hit another level in income.
Yeah, I think that's really smart that you had that foresight too, because a lot of people will be worried about hiring someone else because then they take their income or at least part of their income. And then they think, oh, well, if they're making the money, I'm not going to make any money. But really, the more wood you put in the fire, the bigger the fire, right?
100%. Yeah.
So it's cool that you had that foresight. And it's funny that also all your employees have to live with you. It's like part of the process.
We're super tight, and they're all still here. So it all worked
And
out.
I don't know how you sold this guy's wife of living in your guest bedroom in your house, making $1,000 a month.
Yeah, I honestly, I think good at selling the dream, selling the vision. Like you guys obviously do a great job of that, and it worked out. Fortunately, it worked out. It was interesting because the wife was not so on board. Obviously, this is a big change, and then her family was not a fan of this. Obviously, they're like, your new husband, the guy we just welcomed into our family, is moving our family away, our daughter away, but number two, like how's he going to support her on $1,000 a month? And here we are, 8 years later, 9 years later. They're doing very, very well for themselves. So it all worked out.
I guess that guy is still with you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Does the wife work in martial arts too, or just him?
No, just him. I offered her to be an operations manager, but she wanted to go the medical route. So she went to school and did that.
So most people, they open one school, maybe it's hard for a while, eventually it gets really good, hopefully. And then they think, oh, cool, if I just multiply this by double, have 2 schools or 3 schools, I'll just double or triple my income. Right. And they get kind of caught in that trap, but they don't really have enough resources to do that, whether it's financial or instructors or the know-how. And there's definitely a learning curve because if you go from, hey, I'm teaching all the classes and you're great, and obviously we're a personality driven business, right? Or obviously we have systems that are important, but the person matters a lot as well.
Mhm.
that they think, okay, if I just duplicate this, then I'll make double the amount of money, triple. But then what happens is they end up making half or a quarter and they have twice as stressed, right? So how did
Absolutely.
you know you were ready to go from 1 to 2 to 3?
Yeah, it's a great question because owning multiple schools was never in the cards for me. It was something I never wanted to do. Like was completely against it from the beginning because exactly what you said. I thought I'd seen other people open multiple locations, their income went down instead of going up, and then they eventually just got rid of the second location and went back to the first. So for me, I was a little hesitant to do it. And we started out in 1,000 square feet and then we expanded to 2,000 square feet. And then we expanded to a 5,500 square foot facility. And for me, it was like, I want one school. I want 1,000 members at one location. I want my thumb on it. Everything is in these four walls. And that was the plan. And we were happy with that. And we were doing well. But it got to the point of, man, we're doing well. I don't have to be here all the time. I do have a lot of downtime. And then we had staff members that were training and coming through our program. And one in particular was a great athlete. He made junior national team, had medaled all the U.S. Open, Belgium Open, German Open. He'd done all this. He'd been in our program for a year. So I have complete faith, complete trust in him as a person, even more than a martial artist. But I knew he was great at martial arts. And he's like, hey, I'm going to school. I hate doing this. Like, it's just not what I want to do. And we just were having lunch one day. And light bulb went off. I was like, what if we opened a second school together? Would you be willing to do that? And he said, yeah, I mean, it's the only thing I'm really good at. So let's give it a shot. And then, again, I'm kind of noticing a pattern here. Even he lived about 2.5 hours away. His wife, he's brand new married. His wife was going to college and her credits would not transfer to Charleston. So they said, hey, we're going to stay here, but he's going to drive. So we opened the second location. He drove 2.5 hours each way for the first year that we were open.
He drove 5 hours every single day.
Monday through
Monday
Friday,
to Friday, yeah.
unless they had birthday parties or staff trainings on the weekends, Monday through Friday, 5 hours a day of driving to be at that location.
Holy crap.
Yeah. And I was with him. So the first school, obviously, as you know, like you do everything yourself out of the gate. But that location got to the point that it didn't need me a lot anymore. So for the second location, I basically started over. And again, he was a great martial artist, a great person, but he had never ran a business. Honestly, when I hired him to work, he had never even taught a class in our program. So I had to teach him everything, but it all worked out. So I spent the first year with him Monday through Friday, every single day. We'd get there early and we would train and role play on how to teach, how to answer phones, how to handle walk-ins. And it all worked out. It worked out really well.
And the martial arts class is obviously a big part of your revenue, but the other big part of it is your after school programs. So tell me a little bit about, I know you don't have it in front of you, but about the split in students that are from the after school program and students that are from, just your core martial arts program.
Yes, our total program is about 1,300 students across all of them. And we have about 500 after schoolers. So we have about 800 Taekwondo students.
Okay, cool. So what made you decide to jump into that pool of the after school stuff?
Great question. And, again, something we had never planned on doing. It's funny how as you grow as an entrepreneur, your business grows, just things change. You have to be open to change. It was something we never were interested in doing. I'd heard it being a nightmare for other school owners. And I'd known friends that had done it that completely failed. But then as I started going to other seminars in the industry, I realized, man, there's people doing this that are really successful at it. Like, obviously there's a way to be successful. I just don't know that way yet. So there was a course I bought back years ago from John Cassidy. It was $500 and he had a great program. And again, I thought, well, I don't know if I want to do it, but I'll pay $500 just to learn more. I'm always open to learn. I paid hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in mentorship. And I was like, man, I just want to learn from this. So we learned how to do it. And I thought, man, we could do this. Like, I think this would work in our area. And we had a challenge with having earlier classes in the day. So when I grew up doing martial arts, we had classes starting at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I just mimicked, when I opened my first school, I mimicked what I remembered from high school, and it didn't work. It was, different area, different region, different clientele. So it didn't work. We couldn't get people to come in before 4:30 in the afternoon. And then what we found was parents were like, I'm still working. My kid's out of school, but I'm still working. I can't get my kid here. So we said, hey, let's start this after school program. Let's go all in on it. The first year we started, we only got 7 kids. The entire first year, we just had 7 kids. And my goal was to get 12. I mean, I only wanted a small program, just a little extra piece of revenue. And we did 7 the first year. We did 30 the second year. I think 80 the next year. And then, here we are 7 years later, it's about 500.
What's the hardest part about running an after school program? Like, what part of it sucks?
What part sucks?
Yeah, yeah.
So there is a lot of moving parts. There can be a lot of risk, especially the way we do it. So again, opening our 8th location, we got 2 more opening now after that. And it's just a lot of moving parts. So I will say it's easier because you don't have to have martial arts staff to run those programs. On the other hand, getting trusted employees to come in consistently, right? Because it's only a portion of the day. Even though it's a part-time job, it's literally right in the middle of the day. It's 1 o'clock to 6 o'clock, so it's right in the middle of the day. So that's a challenge. But the other thing is just managing all the moving parts. You got buses going different routes. One of our locations alone picks up 150 kids on 4 different buses every single day. And that's one location. So there's just a lot of opportunity for something to go wrong, whether a kid be missing, like they got picked up early from school, a bus breaks down, a flat tire, making sure all the registrations are up to date, the vehicles have been serviced. There's just a lot of moving parts that you need to be on top of it. Whereas as a martial arts owner, as long as you're there and you're in uniform, even if your staff doesn't show up today, but you're a great instructor, you can rock out a class of 50 kids. Right? It's probably not ideal and what you planned for that day, but you can make it happen. In an after school program with 150 kids, we have 9 part-time staff members just for that location. If 4 of them don't show up today, we have a problem. So
have you ever had like a nightmare situation? Right.
100%. Yeah, 100%. We had a parent actually leaving a school and T-bone one of our vehicles had 15 kids on it.
Oh my God.
Fortunately, no kid was injured and everyone's completely safe, but we're having to go to the scene now, deal with the police, deal with insurance. That person was not insured. So now we're having to basically go through a lawsuit with our own insurance to cover things, and they're going to sue that person. But then having just the nightmare call of calling all the parents, fortunately saying, hey, your son or daughter okay, but it's just not a fun call to have.
Yeah. And is it hard or is it, I guess, a totally different animal to hire people for after school programs? Because you're not looking for a martial arts instructor. You're just looking for someone to, I guess, babysit or coordinate or organize.
100%. It's very different. So martial arts, we very similar to y'all. We try to bring it in up through our program. If we can, those typically have worked out to be the best martial arts instructors are people that started in our program that already know, like, trust us, understand our core values. They bow when they come into the school. They say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, things like that. The difference is when we're hiring these people, it's a job they saw on Indeed and they just want to, make $15 to $20 an hour. So, and again, I always tell my staff, part-time job equals part-time effort. So if something's wrong, they're just not going to show up. So it's definitely more of a challenge. We typically hire high school students that have an early out, or we'll hire a lot of times people that are retired that are just looking for some extra income.
Okay, cool. And do they get all the same background checks as like your instructors would, like same sort of child clearances and stuff?
Absolutely. Yeah. You just have to be very protective of those children. We have cameras all over all of our facilities. Like there is no corner that is not being video camera.
Do you guys do audio as well, or just visual for cameras?
We do both. We do both. So we just record in video. Like when we're watching it on a screen, it's video, but we have a system that records the audio as well, so we can go back and look at it.
Cool. Yeah, I love maybe I don't know, maybe like 12 months ago or something. We updated our cameras for a couple of locations because they all worked at some point, but eventually it stopped working. Right, like the audio didn't work right. Or, record only a day. Just things happen. So, but the technology for cameras has gotten way more consumer friendly and way cheaper. So we recently got cameras that have audio, video, you can zoom in, zoom out, all the stuff that you'd want. And now we do this thing that I love, and I recommend it really for anyone who runs a martial arts school. And we do game film reviews. So we'll I do this for all of our full-time staff at the schools that I personally operate. I'll sit down with them once a week and we'll watch a class that's recorded with the audio. We watch it together, like through Zoom. And then I have them like self-evaluate and take notes about what they think was really, really good. Hey, I want to do more of that. And what could we be done better? Right. And we watch it, like we'll pause. Okay, see how the student's like clearly doing the technique wrong or the kata wrong, but they don't get corrected. Let's see what their parents doing. The parents in there like this. Oh, well, see the body language. Well, what is that parent thinking right now? They're thinking, hey, why am I spending money on tuition here? My child's not being corrected. And just like the way we frame it is, hey, just like an athlete watches game films that can be better on the field next Sunday. Well, you're a professional martial arts instructor. We have to watch films of ourselves. And it's so hard to do because I kind of hurt the ego. But I'll do it for myself as well. Like I'll teach a class and I'll be like, okay, this week we're going to review mine, and I'll have them like review mine and say, hey, what can I do better? And no matter how good of a teacher you are, there's always things that you could do better or things you did wrong. And I'll say like, hey, I messed up there. That was stupid. I shouldn't have said that. Or like, hey, I should have done this line drill differently because it took an extra 2 minutes to get set up and that made no sense. So have you ever done anything like that where you watch like film?
No, you just light bulb just went on. That's amazing, though. I love that. We watch classes and critique them, but it's different when you see it, right? When you see yourself on camera, even just like this, right? People, they always say we sound different than we think we sound. I love that idea, and that's definitely something I want to talk to my director and talk about implementing in our programs. Do you feel? I'm assuming you're doing it. You feel like there's a huge benefit here.
Huge benefit. So I'll kind of run down how we do it. And if you're listening right now and you're like, hey, I want to see how this works, if you send me an email, Matthew@wdojo.com, I'll send you some examples of ones. I record every single one for our staff so that we could always look at it later and I could use it to train future staff. So essentially, we have a Word document. Okay. And it's going to say, Mr. Bobby one-on-one. Okay. And that document we use to take notes for each game film review we do each week. So just like you, I joined a bunch of different masterminds in the past, some martial arts, some outside the martial arts industry, all business related. And one of the things the guy talked about is, hey, want your staff to get a lot better? Like, do you ever train them one-on-one? And I'm like, oh man, I have too many. I don't have time for that. So, oh, well, then you're gonna have time for you're gonna have time for finding new employees when they're not doing well. And I'm like, oh. He's like, yeah, like you should meet with them one-on-one every single week. And it's a giant pain in the butt. But I actually have kind of grown to like it and enjoy it. But basically on this document, we'll put on there the top 3 takeaways that they saw when they watched the video. So when they were watching the video, it's like, okay, they know that at the end, we're going to talk about the top 3 takeaways that they saw. And once again, we have to point out things that are good. It can't just be like, hey, I'm critiquing myself, all bad things, because we want to repeat the good things. Hey, I looked off the safety and they came to the left and opened the receiver on the right side of the field. And I was able to throw a fade. So same idea. I want to do more of that. And then it'll say on there, it'll say for next week. And then we'll put on there one thing out of those takeaways that we want them to have better on film for next week. So I used to have like, I want all 3 things, but it became too much. It would never get corrected. Every week it would be the same thing. We watch the same thing over and over again. So now I just have them pick one thing that they're going to do better for the next week. And I want that thing on film. So if it's like, hey, the next week might be, I want you to give out loud directions to to the assistant instructors, specifically what you want them to look for in the next drill. So instead of saying, all right, we're going to practice kicks and go, and then the instructors kind of just walk around and meander, don't really do much. It's, the more advanced ones will, but the less advanced ones won't. Say, hey, instructors, I want you to look at this kick and make sure that they curl their toes the correct way when they do that front kick. They curl their toes backwards. That's what you're going to look for in the next minute and break. And then the next week, we watch for that specifically in the film. So it used to be like a longer meeting, like an hour. Now I try to keep it under 30 minutes because I don't look at necessarily the whole thing. I look at like a piece of it. And we sell piece by piece each week. And yeah, they have gotten a lot better. It's still newer for us, I'd say within the last year, but seeing how they progress each week and knowing that the next week I'm going to bring up that document and it's going to say what they would need. And they know I'm going to bring up the film. It kind of holds you accountable. So yeah, if you're after this, if you remind me later, I'm happy to send you some of the videos or the docs, and you can use it. It's been super, super helpful.
No, that's a great idea. I'm glad you shared that. Everyone in our industry can. Most people can benefit just from having a meeting with their staff, like you said.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how many people don't have weekly staff meetings, trainings, anything like that. But going one step further, having it on video, I think is super powerful because again, it's just different to see yourself in action. And like you said, the best athletes in the world are watching game tape every single week. And that's how I think even Tom Brady talked about it. I think he watched 5 to 6 hours of game tape literally every day, season or not off season. He's always watching film because he's always studying. And if we want to be the elite in our industry, I think that's something that we can add right there.
Yeah, so I definitely recommend it. And you help other school owners too, right? Or do you have some sort of mastermind or coaching?
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a small mastermind. It's called a Six Figure Mastermind. And it's basically, the way it started was right before COVID and then definitely through COVID. Going into COVID, we had just opened our second location. And that one I was telling you, the kid was driving, it went really well. And then COVID bottomed him out. And so we just were posting, hey, here's what we just started a Facebook group and said, hey, here's what we're doing. If you guys are doing anything, tell us. And then we can just share and go back and forth. And it just worked out. It kind of grew over time. And then it was mostly people in the state of South Carolina first, just seeing us grow. And we were just open to sharing. I mean, we're an open book always. So, if anyone has any questions, ask. We're an open book. So we just shared, hey, here's what we're doing. Share with us what you're doing. We've tweaked our business so much from learning. Just like you just added the video. I'm like, man, I got to talk. So I made a note, like I got to talk to my team about this. So it's like we're constantly learning. And then we said, hey, let's just put a meeting on the calendar every single week. And then school owners basically pay to be a part of that, just so that we can hold each other accountable. Because when you pay attention.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're training your staff, right, across your locations, what's something that you do that's like you think the most impactful for training high quality, reliable staff members that you think everyone should be doing?
For us, it's role playing. And I know that's really basic, but I think most people don't do it.
Mhm.
We role play every single day in our locations for only probably 10 to 15 minutes at each location. And then every month we have a staff training where the locations get together. And then every other month, all the schools get together and we just mix everyone up in different locations and we role play how to greet someone walking in the door, how to answer the phone, how to new student that's coming in, how do we introduce them to the staff and show them the facility, like doing the tours. Any piece of our business, it needs to be role played. I think we love to talk at people. We love to talk at our staff, but there's a difference between talking and doing. And I know it's not real time because it's just staff and we're already comfortable and we know each other. But if you can't do it here, you definitely can't do it there. And the argument's always, well, I'm nervous around you. You're my boss. Okay, well, you're like you should be nervous with this person because now there's money involved, right?
Yeah.
So you should always just be on, and the only way you get comfortable is being uncomfortable first. So the biggest thing I would say that we do that's impactful is role playing.
And you're an athlete, so you get this. I mean, all athletes do that, right? They all practice scripts from game films, right?
Right.
And they're like, okay, we're going to pretend it's 2 minutes left. We're down by 7. We got to drive the field and we have no timeouts. And they
Right.
do that. And like, you're an athlete, so you totally get that, right?
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
think most people who are business owners that don't do that is because it's like painful for them because they don't feel like doing it. And I'm one of those people, I don't feel like doing it, all the time. And, but it's so important because they get that rep and it's not for you, it's for them.
Yes.
So do you have like a certain system you follow of like, okay, here's the 12 things that I want to make sure we role play and we just go through that over and over? How do you do it?
Yeah, good question. So the weekly one or the daily ones rather are very quick. So they're very handling walk-ins, handling new students, answering phones. Those are just kind of the things they're dealing with on a daily basis. So we rep those out pretty regularly. And then when it comes to the actual like the more intensive training, the biggest ones for us is energy. So we try to create as much energy as possible. We've all been there before where you're teaching a class and it's just super low energy and that matters. Like you said, that's the parent sitting back going like, what am I doing? Like, why am I paying for this? If it's hype, if the energy is through the roof, if the music is blasting, the kids are learning, they're smiling, they're sweating, their heart's beating fast, parents are willing to pay for that, right? They're going to pay for that. So how do we create that? How do we create momentum? How do we create energy out of thin air? So for us, that's, what we try to role play, especially with our junior instructors, is hand movements, it's body language, it's voice inflections, it's high fives, it's physical touches. So that's probably the biggest thing we do when we get all the locations together.
So when you're hiring instructors, do you generally look for someone who's got really great energy and more outspoken, someone kind of like you? Or do you think, okay, I can just train this person on how to do that kind of stuff?
Great question. I always go for the person that has the energy and the effort and the attitude. I always say we hire for effort and attitude. We can train the skill. I think it's just much harder to convince someone to be outgoing. I don't think it can't be done. For example, the second location we opened, Thorn, he is one of the most introverted kids I've ever seen in my life. just doesn't talk. Even as his coach, I'm like, hey, when you do this, this, and this, I'm like hype, getting pumped, like I'm sweating before the fight. I'm nervous for him, and he's just sitting there like kind of twiddling his thumbs. Like, are you nervous? He's like, no, I'm good. I'm like, are you excited? No, I'm good. He'd win, he won nationals, make national team. He's not even smiling, right? So for him, it's just I do the job. I do, like you said, do the reps, do the work, get the result. And I honestly, that was kind of a red flag. Was like, man, can he be the guy? And then through all those role plays and all those reps that we practice, he can turn it on like a light switch. When he's there, he's master Thorn. He's amazing. He's energetic. And when he's not, he shuts down. So, but to answer your question, I think that's kind of the anomaly. I don't think that's normal.
So what's the worst part about running a martial arts school or martial arts organization? Like what's the thorn in your side?
I would say the thorn in my side is, especially now that we've expanded even more, is not having a thumb on the locations. So something we did this year is hire a director of operations who oversees all of our schools. He goes to every location 1 day per week and spends time with the staff before they open, and then spends time during classes, just observing, taking notes. Hey, like you said, this is what you're doing great. This is what I think we should work on. I want to implement the video. I think that's even better, so I can visually see it as well. But I'm just not there as much. I'm not really there that often. There's some of my schools I go to 3 or 4 times a year. Like I'm really not there.
So you barely go to some of them.
It's interesting how I started doing this because I love martial arts and want to help people. And now it's like, I still get that drive of helping people. But now it's more like helping our staff. I can help our staff create opportunities for themselves, their family, and then ultimately their community as well. But I would say the biggest challenge for me personally is just not being at the schools, not having a thumb on it. But that becomes the thorn inside of, if I go to a school and I see something I don't like, or I feel like it's not up to our standards, it's easy to have one location operate at a high level at all times. It's a much different thing to have 8, 10, as I'm sure you guys, I think, have 40 locations, 40 plus.
Yeah, 31 right now.
31. Yeah. It's like,
but I don't operate all of them. That's my brother is the one that kind of oversees. I have 4, but
4. Yeah. I mean, but as you know, it's like just keeping everyone on track, like on standard. And we try to create an entrepreneur, if that makes sense. So originally I was the person that started everything. The way we do our programs is they get a base salary as a head instructor, as the general manager of that school. And then once they hit certain benchmarks, they now unlock the ability to basically buy into their location. So they come into it knowing that I'm going to sell them this school. So they're motivated to grow it because they're going to start getting pieces of the pie as well. So we try to create that entrepreneur, but again, it's just different, right? Like what someone sees as hard work, someone does not see as hard work. I don't mind putting 60 hours in a week. I don't really do that anymore, but there's times that I have to, especially when a new school opens. It's a lot of hours. I enjoy it. I'm fortunate that I do something I enjoy, but sometimes having staff, when they push back, like, I don't want to come in this weekend. Okay, you get paid for revenue. Like, you need to get your ass here. Yeah. So that can be a challenge too, is when you get pushback sometimes.
So what's the most percentage that someone else owns that's, not you, of a school?
30%.
30%. How much will that cost over time for 30%? Is it based on like the value of the business, or you just establish whatever it costs in advance? Because obviously the better the school does, the more it's going to cost, right? So how do you structure that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the way we do it is I do 3x net profit. So say, for example, so the way I would do it, if I hired, we decided we're going to work together, you would get a base salary and you would start out at, we used to do 30, now we're up to 40,000. So you would start out at $40,000 a year. Once your school hits 10,000 in revenue for 2 months consecutively, you're going to get a bump. And that's your new bump, right? That's your new base. Once it gets 15, 20, 25, 30, it's unlimited. So your bumps keep happening and that becomes your salary. So you get those bumps. Once you hit $35,000 a month in revenue for 6 months consecutively, you can now buy into your location. So the way it would work, we shoot with the after school programs. I mean, again, that just to be completely fair and honest, we have a huge profit margin there. So our schools with after school and the martial arts together this year, we're averaging about 45% of profit. So we have a great profit margin this year. Again, that's with both programs.
Typical martial arts school is going to be like 20%, maybe 30 if it's good.
Yeah.
So the after school is like a big.
Yes. And even with us, we have the 2 standalone after school summer camp programs, they're at 25.
Okay.
So again, having those businesses in the same building can be powerful for revenue and profit. So, but the way I would do it is say, all right, well, you've hit these benchmarks, let's buy into it. So for simple math, if it's doing 35,000 a month, let's say it's netting, just say $10,000 a month, right? So 120,000 a year. We'll multiply that times 3, and then you're basically buying 10% of that.
Okay, cool. So let's say there's 360K a year, and they're going to buy 10%. They're going to be 36 grand.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. And do people usually have the money to be able to afford this sort of thing? Do they take out loans for it? What do they usually do?
Yeah, great question. So early on, I would finance it for them at a 0% interest rate, just because I want to have a really good working relationship with them, and I want them to as soon as someone starts getting those owner checks, they are more bought in for sure. So I want to get them in that driver's seat. So I will finance it for them. I have done that, and then we've had school owners.
That is so nice of you. You're like paying yourself. You're like buying yourself. That's crazy generous.
Yeah. I have friends I have a bunch of real estate buddies here and huge investors here in Charleston. They're always like, well, how do I do this deal? And I'm like, it's a different relationship. But we did that early on. I don't do that anymore. So I did that early on with the first couple of schools.
Did you get bit or something? Like, why'd you stop?
Why?
Yeah, like you said, you did it early on the stop. Did you get bit? Like someone pieced out after? Like what happened?
No issues at all. So, early on, the first 3 schools I opened with were with people that were very close to me already. So I want to make it a great relationship. We're all growing together. The newer locations that have been opening up, it's people that have come and joined our program and opened locations with us. So as much as I obviously care about these people deeply and they're part of my team and I value them, it becomes a little more transactional. So and even back then, I would finance the first 10%. But anything after that would not. So the gentleman who owns 30%, I financed the 10, and then he took a loan out for the other 20.
Okay, cool. I think that's really important also that now you do that, like you let them take out a loan, because you need to fire under their ass and you'd be like, oh my God, like I need to pay off this loan. The bank is not going to be like, oh yeah, no big deal. Pay me next month. Right. Like they have to, we've had people, we had someone who, one of the schools I own there, she's a partner in, and she was going to buy a house or she was going to invest in the martial arts school. And I'm like, listen, you can do whatever you want, obviously, but I promise, like, investing in the martial arts school is going to buy you probably multiple houses over time. Right. Yes. Like it's a way better investment. Do whatever you want. It's better for me if you buy less, because great, I'll get more money, but it'll be better for you long term. It's going to suck in the beginning. Right. It's like they're still there at their first year. Right. So I'm like, it's not going to get a check right away, but there's no investment you make where you put a bunch of money into something and you get payback right away. If there is, it's probably a scam or I want to know about it. Right. It usually takes years to recover your money, and then you start making money. Then it's wonderful, but it always sucks before it's good. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. I tell people, if you have a great program like you guys do, this is a cash machine. Like you're literally made a money printing machine. And I tell my staff, you need to own this. You eventually should be owning this thing, because and I love real estate. I know you guys do too. You guys are heavily involved in the real estate. I love real estate. I don't know too many things that are printing out 25, 35, 45% profit margins.
No way.
Every single month. I mean, it's insane.
If I get 7% or 10%, I'm happy. Right.
Exactly.
I'm like, oh, thank God. Right.
Yes.
Yeah. We had a commercial property we bought during COVID that we put one of our schools in, and it's like 3 or 4 1, 2, 3. It's 4 units and an amazing block. The martial arts school in that location does incredible. It's just an amazing location, super high income, a lot of people, not a lot of martial arts schools, literally the perfect situation. And we bought it for, I think it was 2.1 million. And I had partners that bought it with me. Right. And it's just a great deal because it was COVID. And the person who owned it, he ran a travel agency for the high-end people in the neighborhood. Right. It's a high income area. And COVID happened and his business went to 0 overnight. We thought we had it bad. This guy was a travel agent who was doing millions of dollars a year in revenue. I think I forget what it was, 10 or 15 million or something.
Wow.
Super high, high-end vacations, for a family that it's $100,000 for their family to go to Africa for 2 weeks. That's those types of vacations. And even though it's in an amazing block, beautiful spot, we've had 1 unit of that that's been empty now for 2 years. can't get anyone to fill it. It's hard to fill in real estate. Like
Wow.
I think people think like, and we've had maybe 4 or 5 different agents. Every single one says, "Oh, I'm definitely gonna get this filled. Look at it. It's right by the train station. This, the perfect spot." I'm like, "Yeah, we know that. The last person said that too." We've
Yeah.
handed out flyers ourselves. Like we've gone and talked to all the local businesses. But I think sometimes people have an idea that real estate's gonna be easy if they have the money to afford it or invest, but it's
Yeah.
freaking not.
Yeah.
Um,
Eh, The real estate industry's done a good job of telling people it's passive
yeah,
investing. It's
no
super.
way.
No, there's
No
no
way.
anything you put your money into is not passive. I promise you.
Yeah. I had a tenant, I have a management company, but I had a tenant who just had my number and he texted me that someone broke in, moved his camera, and stole one of his AirPods. And I'm like, and he texted me this at 1:30 in the morning. And and it was like, 7 or 8 like power texts. Oh, and I'm like, this guy is out of his mind. Who would break in, move the cat, and steal one AirPod? Like,
Yeah.
you just lost your AirPod or something. I don't know what to tell you, bro. Like, no one did that. And then, he texted me, "Hey, I'm sorry, I misplaced it. I shouldn't have. I spoke too fast. I'm usually really responsible with my stuff. I just didn't respond. I'm like, I'm not responding to this person. That's insane. But real estate is definitely not easy. So I have a couple just like personal questions to get to know
Sure.
you a little bit better. What books do you feel like, name 1 or 2 books or just one that you feel like has shaped your career the most?
Atomic Habits literally changed my life, and I'm sure you've read it. It's a very
Yeah.
popular book. It was a more recent book too. I think it's only a couple years old now, but I've read all the Good to Greats and E Myth, and those are awesome books. I mean, I think everyone should read them. But Atomic Habits for me, I'm just a very systemized person. I wake up at the same time. I read at the same time. I go to the gym at the same time. I was in the military, so for me, it's just structure is how I operate. I love that book because it just breaks down results and success into small daily habits. And it just really resonated with me.
What time do you wake up and go to sleep?
So good question. I typically now it's later. I wake up about 7 a.m. every day. So I have no alarm or anything like that. I typically wake up between 6 and 7. But no matter what, if like at 7 o'clock, I'll be awake. Early days in the business, it was 4 or 5. I thought I got to get up early and grind. And honestly, I probably did need to do that because it kept me focused to not do dumb stuff at night. I was like yourself when I first started, single dude. No kids, no responsibilities. I could do whatever I wanted. So, and that was a blessing at the time, to be honest. But now I have a daughter, young daughter. So we try to go to bed around 10 or 11. And then sometimes I stay up late watching football.
Okay.
And yeah, and then by 7, but I don't use alarm ever.
Are you a Panthers fan?
I'm actually not. So I'm in the SEC world. So I'm a
Okay.
huge college football, but I enjoy football. And like I said, being an athlete growing up, I just love I watch all sports: basketball, football, baseball, NFL, NHL. Anyone that's competing at a high level, I want to watch it.
So who's your teams?
So my high school team, or my high school, my college
I
team
was gonna
is
say high school. That's
yeah.
too much.
We're going. He's like, we're going too deep.
Nah.
No, my college team. Every Saturday, I watch South Carolina Gamecocks.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we are like 2-6 this year. It's not a good year.
Okay.
So that's a bad year. My wife graduated from Ohio State. Fortunately, they're undefeated right now, so I get to ride their coattails a little bit. But on Sunday, I'll watch any football team.
Okay, cool. If you want to ride the Eagles bandwagon, you're more.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure you got to be.
Yeah.
You got to be an Eagles fan.
Yeah, 100%. Huge Eagles fan. All right, next one. Complete this answer. I feel most alive when
I'm teaching. I feel most alive when I'm actually teaching because I don't do it that often anymore. So when I am doing it, I'm fortunate enough that I can bring like unlimited amounts of energy. It's like when you don't have kids, like when you're the cool uncle, you can probably be like, everything is awesome. The life's amazing. And then you can hand them back. You know what I mean? So for me, it's I do twice a year, I do what we call black belt boot camp at our locations. It's for all of our black belts or anyone that's about to graduate into black belt status. And it's me just teaching like a 4-hour intensive, just pouring everything, my years of experience into them. And I get more energy out of that than I put in.
Very cool. I think that's awesome. So how many classes do you teach a week typically?
Me personally?
Yeah.
I have it a 0.
Zero,
I haven't
okay.
taught a class. I've probably taught 4 classes since COVID happened.
Oh my God. Wow. Yeah, I
Yeah, I don't
teach
teach.
1 class a week. I teach a black belt class and I look forward to it. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if I don't feel like it that week, I don't do it, right? So I'll have someone else do it. But I
Yeah.
definitely enjoy it when I do. But if I had to teach every single class, I would not feel the same way, right?
Yeah.
I just feel like I'm past that part of my career, and it sounds like you're kind of in the same path where it's like, yeah, I put in the many, almost a decade of teaching basically every single class. I don't want to do that part of it. Now it's the part where I teach other people how to do it.
100%. Yeah. I still train though. I will say that I still train. I have a couple guys I did personal training with.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, a lot of like doctors, lawyers, dentists, like they really, I think they never got that competitiveness out, but they're still competitive in their field. For a while there, I was doing private lessons, and these guys would literally pay me. It started out as learning martial arts, and then they got into the sparring aspect of it. And with sport taekwondo, they have the electronic system, the data system. So we bought that, and I still have a couple sessions every week where we just pad up and get some matches in.
Okay, that's cool. It's probably more like friends at this point.
Yeah, no, we don't pay. There's no charging. Yeah, it's just for fun. These are just great guys.
That's awesome. What's a tool you use in your business that you feel like everyone needs to know about? Maybe it's like a software or something you do specific that like you think if people use this, their business would be a lot better off.
We use an app called Marco Polo. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's an easy way to, we're always texting, and especially with the different locations, it's just an easy way to communicate. And a lot of times I feel like text can be misconstrued and come out of context. So it's an easy way that I can just make a quick video text of me saying, hey team, is everyone on board with their trunk or treat? Like, does anyone, give me a thumbs up. Everyone's good to go. Any questions you have, any concerns, last minute things you need help with, put it in this Marco Polo. And the cool thing is Marco Polo, it's like an ongoing text string and video string. So it just saves all the videos. So there's times that, I know something's coming up. I'm like, oh, I know they told me this, but I can't remember. And I can just scroll back through and watch the video. But we use Marco Polo daily.
How much does that cost a month?
So there's a free version, and I think the paid version is like $10 a month.
Do you use the paid one or use the free one?
I use the free one.
Wow. So you're still able to use the free one even with your staff. You have
yes.
Oh, wow. I would assume that you had too many users or something that it wouldn't be free.
No. So the cool thing about it too, is you can have different polos. So what it means is like, I can have one with you. So I'll have one with just the head instructors, and I'll have one with just the operations managers, and I'll have one with all of our staff. And then you can have one with even your part-time staff. So you can communicate with the certain segments of your business you need to, and then it doesn't get crossed over.
Very cool. What would your Taekwondo Olympic, you as like a teen, right? So like your 18-year-old self, what would he say about you now?
I would say the 16-year-old, 17-year-old version of me would say, you made it. You made it. Because growing up, I wanted to do martial arts. Actually, I wanted to be a teacher, an elementary school teacher when I was in school, when I was a ninth grader. Like, what do you want to do? Well, I want to do martial arts, but there's no way I'm going to make a living doing that. Yeah. So I'm going to go to school to be a teacher. I just want to work with kids all day long and teach them. They're fun. So the fact that I was able to figure out a way to mesh those together, have a life that I enjoy, provide for other people, I would say the 17-year-old version of me would be very happy.
Very cool. And now that you're in this part of your career, what does work-life balance mean to you?
Work-life balance for me is, I think it's situational, and I think it's seasonal. So what I mean by that is, for the past 4 or 5 years, we've opened a location every August. So what that means for us is June and July, I'm busy. I've been super slammed. I'm working 8-10-hour days. Once the school's up and running, like for now, we're in November 1st right now. I haven't been to that location that just opened. I probably go maybe once a week just to kind of pop by, check in on them, work with their team, answer any questions they have. And honestly, I like that. I like seasons. And I think it's because when I was an athlete, there were highs and lows. And, there was times where you're training for a competition. We're in a 60-day cycle. We have world championships coming up, and we have to get ready for it. So there was a lot of intense work, and then it was downtime. Then it's just, hey, we got to go through the motions and don't gain weight. Make sure you stay close to your weight class. Okay. Keep the tools sharp, right? So I think I got used to those kind of highs and lows, those seasonalities of what I was doing. And I enjoy that in my business. So for me, my family, I'm very fortunate that they support me a lot. And my wife understands that a lot of times during summers, I'm going to work a lot. It's the way it is. but the rest of the year I don't have to work as much. So I'm okay with that. But my new goal, our new thing we're doing with Location 8 is I'm actually trying to open it via Marco Polo. So via my phone. So I basically have systemized everything we've done over the last, 5 years opening these locations. And I have our director opening the next one. And I'm trying to figure out a way, like, how much can I teach someone through a phone to do this without me there at all?
Very cool. Please document the process. And now that we're
Will do.
connected, I'm on your YouTube channel. I'm gonna be paying attention to that, and you'll see if do you use Instagram?
I do.
Yeah, so we'll connect on Instagram. One of our the newest school that I opened personally, we opened up 2-3 months ago or something, and I'm working on this is I think unique. I don't know anyone else that really does this. Is I'm working on getting an employee who is a competitive fighter in South Africa to get him a visa to come here to be a head instructor for a school. School's already open. I mean, it's not really open. It is open, but it's we rent out like a church space for super cheap. And I'm doing all the school and daycare programs myself, just get people in there without running out. Like we're not running out. We can't have too many people in there at once. So it's got to be small. But the goal is to get him in here. I already have members going, and then we'll find a location for full time, then move in. So I'm kind of showing all the behind the scenes, and I'm doing a lot of the grunt work myself. Kind of like that's my season right now because I know when he gets here, he can take over. But I want money coming in, and I want money
Yes.
that I can afford to pay rent or purchase a building easily, or at least not have have a hit personally for when he
Yeah.
comes. And I'm in the process now of getting him a visa, which cost about 10 grand and a giant risk, and someone and bring it in that is not part of our organization, right? Someone
Yeah.
from the outside. So I'm kind of showing all the behind the scenes stuff there. If you want to check it out, it's pretty cool. If
No,
someone,
that's super.
sorry,
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
no, you go.
I was just say we looked into doing that in the past. We've had quite a few people reach out, from around the world, different countries that have said, "Hey, we'd love to work with you," and this is a great opportunity for them and an opportunity for like our businesses that are looking to grow. I'm very interested. I remember you posting about that on Facebook, and I'm interested to watch and see you document it because it's something we looked into. And same thing about $10,000 to have the whole process, but the fear is the risk, right? The fear
Yeah.
is the risk. So I'd love to watch it and follow it.
Yeah, I mean, I flew him in over the summertime and spent a week with us, lived in my house, my apartment, and he was just amazing. Like, just the exact type of person that you want in your school, right? Great energy, super charismatic, patient, an amazing martial artist,
Well,
right? And he runs a school in South Africa in Johannesburg, but doesn't have the opportunity to make a real income from it, right? And we can provide that opportunity. So it's really the perfect thing for him. The only issue is that I did the visa process, a ton of paperwork. Like it's like a 500-page document prepared by lawyers. We have to give them all this stuff. And then they came back to us a week and a half, 2 weeks later, and they said, "Hey, we need more information." So now I'm in that second part. So now it's like do or die. So over the
yeah.
next week or two, I'll submit it again. We paid for an expedited answer, so we paid extra, so they would answer quickly. And I think so far this week, today's Wednesday, I think I put about 15 hours into it.
Wow.
So it's not an easy process. It's difficult, but I'm so scared I'm going to submit if I half-ass any one part of it that they'll say no, and that'll be it. And then I'm like, oh
Yeah.
crap, I don't know what I'm going to do. So my back's really up against the wall right now. So we'll see what happens. But if someone wanted to find you, how could they find you? What's the best way to
Yeah,
connect?
absolutely. Just Donovan Ryder, DONOVAN RIDER. A lot of people put a Y in my last name, RIDER. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram, just Donovan Ryder.
Cool. Well, thank you for listening to today's podcast. My name is Matthew Brenner. If you're interested in growing your martial arts school, you can check out my Instagram at blackbeltbrenner1 or email me matthew@wdojo.com. You can also, if you send me an email or DM asking for game film review, I'm happy to send you a sample like we talked about today. So you can use it for your school because I really think everyone should do it. Thank you very much. Bye, guys.